Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny along with Kenny Squared. Welcome back to Sports on the Positive Tip, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, I just read this. Hubie Brown, at the age of 91, is finally retiring from broadcasting this year. Were you surprised?
Honestly, I'm surprised he's still broadcasting.
And he's still very good, actually. Um, I did not know this. I'm sure you did. You know, the Mets picked up Jose Siri this week in a trade. They traded Eric Ozra, who was one of my inspirations this year because he's the guy who had cancer twice and finally made it to the big leagues with the Mets. But I understand that Juan Soto can't stand Jose Siri. That there was a little thing with him and Soto. Soto like went around the bases. It took him almost 40 seconds after Siri hit a home run, and that they exchanged a lot of words. Do you remember that?
Oh,
Yeah.
I just remembered that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm sure though if the Mets offer $50 more million than any other team, he can make up with him. I'm sure that won't keep him from there. Noah Syndergaard is trying to come back this year. Says he's in the best shape of his career and his velocity is back up to 95 miles an hour. Would you take a flyer on him?
I mean, I don't think the Yankees need him,
Yeah,
but also the I'm in the best shape of my career is something that every struggling pitcher from the previous year says.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
like spring training 101 right there.
Yeah, yeah. He's only 32 though, 31 to 32. So I don't know. I'd be willing to take a flyer on him with the Mets for sure. Tyrese Maxey, apparently in this team meeting of the 2-12 Philadelphia 76ers, scolded Joel Embiid, and saying, "Man, you just always late." Is there real trouble brewing in Philly? I know you texted me something last night about another injury.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a dumpster fire that's already there
Huh.
that's just gonna get worse. Like
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if we start talking about like should they start trading some of these guys out? Does
yeah,
Embiid have a new home? Like stuff
yeah.
like that.
He probably needs a new home, but who's going to take him? You know, there was talk of the Knicks trading Karl Anthony Towns for him. I wouldn't do that in a million years now. Um,
Nope.
so the Knicks and the Spurs, this should be pretty cool with you and Isaac. I don't know if you knew this. The Knicks and Spurs are going to have an alternate broadcast on Christmas Day on the Disney Channel, and it's going to be Disney characters that will be kind of substituting for the Knicks, and it's going to be like an alternate broadcast. That's something you'll watch with your son?
I'd consider it, yeah.
Yeah, should be pretty cool. All right, we got Hall of Fame to get into. We've got some NBA, and we got a lot of NFL. You ready to get this going?
Let's get into it.
All right. This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers! Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, what an exciting week this has been. All the awards. No drama, really, but Luis Heel winning Rookie of the Year was really great. That was probably the only dramatic. I mean, we know who's going to win MVP tonight. It'll be Mr. Shohei, and Mr. Judge will bring home his second MVP. So, but I liked more the Hall of Fame announcements. So we wanted to spend a little time on this, and I'm going to lean more on your takes here. I jotted down some statistics of some of them, but we've got first the holdovers, right? We've got Billy Wagner, Carlos Beltran, and Andrew Jones. Are any one of those three, in your opinion, getting in this time around?
You said Billy Wagner in there too?
Yes, Billy Wagner, Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, I think are the three main holdovers.
I do think Billy Wagner gets in.
Okay.
Um, I think he's going to get that extra boost as being in his last year and everything. And he was what, 5 votes short or something like that.
Yeah, he should get in. I would think so too.
Um, I don't have it up here, but the I wonder where Beltran will end up as far as his percentage. I don't know if he'll get in this year, or maybe next year.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think
I
he's a
think
Hall of
that
Famer, Carlos Beltran?
I think he's borderline.
Borderline?
It's
Okay.
hard.
Okay. I'm a little
Um,
biased because of his time with the Mets. I think he's a Hall of Famer, but you know me, I add in the postseason stuff. He was money in the postseason. I know he struck out with the Mets, but with the Astros, and then there were some other moments, in that series that he came through in the clutch. But he might be borderline. You might be right there.
yeah, I think the only and Andrew Jones is going to be interesting
Yeah.
because like I think last year he got a lot of support. Okay, I have it up here.
Hmm.
I think Andrew Jones might get in. He's at 58% from
Okay.
last year.
Okay.
Beltran was at 46%.
Right.
So I think he could get it.
So Andrew Jones got more support than Beltran last year. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I liked Andrew Jones, but he never looked like he was hustling. I think that's worked against him because he was so good. So a little bit like Robinson Cano. He was so good at getting to a spot, knowing where the ball was hit that did you ever see like Andrew Jones like run into a wall or something like that? It's almost like he never had to because he was just so good at positioning and but he was also an excellent hitter. I wouldn't say he was a great hitter. He had a couple of great years, but 51 home runs, I think he hit one year. And there were rumors about him, but he was never caught up really in steroids. All right, but we've got the big ones, right? The two big ones first time this year. I think you probably feel that they are shoe-ins on their first time around. And one is CC Sabathia. Let's stay with him for a second. Shoe-in first time around. What are you thinking?
I know some people don't agree, but I say yeah.
Okay.
He's only one of three left-handed pitchers. No, he's a very small amount of left-handed pitchers to have over 3,000 strikeouts.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Okay. Listen, he was a great pitcher. He was clutch. He was a great pitcher for a long time. Certainly, he had a great career, second part of his career with the Yankees after he signed that big deal, and he pitched great, I thought, in the postseason. So there's a lot of pluses there for me that year in 2008, right? Because he came to the Yankees in
Milwaukee.
2009. Yeah, with
Yeah.
Milwaukee. Well, the year before that, he won the Cy Young with the Cleveland at the time, the Indians, right? What was he, 18-4 or something like that? He had a great year. And then they knew they couldn't sign him, so they peeled him off to the Brewers. And that 17 starts, 1.65 ERA. I mean, oh my gosh. And he pitched a complete game, threw well over 100 pitches on the last game of the season that year to get the Brewers into the playoffs. The guy was money.
Um, just as it's one of my fun stats that I love. He led both leagues in complete games that year.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Uh, It is. And so he's one of these last old school type, just give me the ball, don't take me out, type of old school pitchers. Don't mess with his teammates because he was very quick to throw inside or hit you. Didn't care. I like CC a lot. And so I would say I agree with you. I mean, you got to put Ichiro in though on the first ballot, yes?
Yeah, Ichiro, it's going to be less of a question on if he gets
Yeah.
on or more of will he be the second unanimous Hall of Fame
Yeah. Yeah, I
inductee
would.
because
Yeah.
he's up there.
It'll be embarrassing who doesn't vote for him. I mean, so rookie of the year, MVP, only one of two players to do that, right? With Fred Lynn.
Yeah,
I didn't realize this until I looked it up today. Did you know he had 200 or more hits in each of his first 10 seasons in the majors? I mean,
that's
that was
insane.
like Pete Rose and Wade Boggs type territory. And I don't even think they did it. That's just amazing. He was just an amazing player. Had a phenomenal arm, right? Great defensively. He had it all. But and he got to 3,000 hits. And they say that if you add his hits in the Japanese league, that he had well over 4,000 hits. So I think that's a no-brainer, yes?
Yeah, and like not only was he an excellent hitter, he has the record for single season hits. but also he was an amazing defender. Um,
Yeah,
all of those guys, he's guns out on the fly from right field at third base.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and also infield single type of guy.
yeah.
Um, yeah, he's definitely got to be a Hall of
He
Famer
should
first
be
ballot.
first ballot. Absolutely. All right. Now some interesting names of some first time guys that I don't think any of them will get in on the first ballot, but I'm curious as to if you think they'll get in. I've got three here. Ian Kinsler. Now, he was a four-time All-Star. He was a 30-30 guy a couple of times. He had 185 leadoff homers, which I think is second or third all time. Is he a Hall of Famer?
I don't know. I think he's Hall of really good.
Okay. I knew you were going to say that
Because
at some point about somebody. Um, he
yeah,
finally won a chain. He was on those Texas Ranger teams that went to the World Series back to back, but they didn't get over the hump. But he was on the Red Sox. I've totally forgot this. Did you know this? He was on the Red Sox in 2018, and so
oh,
he got his one championship in his last year. I'm with you. I think he's very borderline. I don't think he'll get in. All right, here's a really interesting one. Now you have to take your bias hat off, and that would be one Dustin Pedroia. Now he was MVP. I didn't realize he played 14 seasons. It seems like he played a lot less than that. He was the heart and soul of those Red Sox teams, won several championships, right? But he had a lot of injuries, and his probably last 4 or 5 years. I know he was on the 2018. Also, he has that championship as well, but I don't think he played hardly at all that year. Dustin Pedroia, what do you think?
I know it's gonna sound biased, but I kind of still say no.
Okay.
Like, uh, and it's hard to pinpoint someone that should have won MVP that year. I actually had just seen I put a post that like on my memories that he should have won MVP. Uh, I have that up.
Who should have won?
Second was I don't know. There really isn't a great option that year.
Right.
Oh, wait, never mind. How somehow this guy landed seventh place. Um 304 batting average, 32 homers, 130 RBIs for the Texas Rangers. That's probably why they probably weren't that good in 2008. Josh Hamilton.
Oh, Josh Hamilton. Wow. He did win an MVP though, right? Was it with the Angels that he won an MVP? I think he did
Yeah.
win. So Pedroia though, the American League that year, I think, Kenny, because the Red Sox won that year, right? Didn't they win the championship in '08? So
Yeah, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. But I think that I don't think the Yankees made the playoffs that year because that's when they went on that spending spree with Mark Teixeira
Yeah.
and CC. But I think that the American League that year went a little bit like the National League, I think, has done at times, which if Otani hadn't just been off the chart, they would have did that with Lindor this year when they give it to a Jimmy Rollins or a Barry Larkin, a Kirk Gibson, someone that doesn't have the best numbers but really meant the most to their team. And I think that that year, the American League voters don't tend to do that, but I think they did it that year with Pedroia. So you don't think he's getting in?
I don't think so because
Yeah.
also I think what hurts him a little bit is like I think he's more known as a really good Red Sox, not necessarily a very good player. Like you could make the
Yeah.
argument that he was never the best player on his team. So you had David
Oh,
Ortiz there, you
yeah,
had Manny there,
this is true.
all of the pitching that was there between Lester, Lackey, Sale
Yeah,
through the years there. So
yeah. Okay. All right. But he was well, I was gonna say he was the heart and soul of that team, but then again, Jason Varitek, I know was a little on the back of his career when Pedroia was there. But I
Euclid,
gotta yeah, go ahead.
Euclid too.
Yeah, yeah, Kevin Youkilis. I forgot about him. And I always forget that he played for the Yankees as well, Kevin Youkilis. All right, here's a really good one, and that is King Felix Hernandez, who's coming up this year. Now, he did pitch a perfect game. He did play for 15 years, which also surprises me that it seems like the injuries hit probably his last 5 years as well. He also won a Cy Young. he had some great lights out years. I think he was a six-time All-Star. King Felix, is he getting in eventually? I'm sure he's not getting in this first time around.
Definitely not getting in this first time around. I think it's close for him.
Okay.
Um, so over his career, he had 2,524 strikeouts, which
Yeah.
is pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, and really like his stretch from 2009 until 2015, he was arguably the best pitcher in baseball.
I think
Listen to
so.
these ERAs in that time span. 249, 227, which led the majors. That's when he won the Cy Young. 347, 306, 304, 214, which led
Wow.
the American League. He came second in Cy Young, and then 353.
Wow.
So he was close to
Yeah.
winning too.
Yeah.
Corey Kluber won that one
Yeah.
in 2014. So
Yeah.
um, I don't know. It's close for me. Um, you could argue too he'd have a lot more. I know wins isn't really a thing that a lot of voters look at as much anymore. Has 169 wins. He probably would be at a 200 if he didn't play for the Mariners for most of his career.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I wouldn't be mad if he's inducted in.
Yeah. I think you'd have to put in one of his peers, though, that I'm surprised hasn't gotten more. Maybe he's not eligible yet. You'd have to tell me that, but that would be Cliff Lee. I always thought their careers were pretty similar. Um, it seemed like Lee was was consistent a little bit longer than King Felix, but I think John Lester may fall under that as well. And Lester with the championships on two teams, might give him an edge when he comes up. What about Cliff Lee?
Uh, Cliff Lee, let's see. Uh, he be here? I don't know if I would go with Cliff Lee because I feel like he gets too injured. Um,
Yeah.
but
Some great years
uh,
with Cleveland and then with the Phillies. I mean, um, he was on some World Series teams. I thought I don't know, but it seemed like he faded away pretty quickly.
yeah, he's got to be eligible.
I was right
Uh,
because I would he's been retired for a while, right? But you never hear about him getting any votes. I'm wondering if he just dropped off now.
he must have because
Yeah.
he retired in 2014.
Yeah. So he probably didn't. I'm surprised he didn't get that. So scratch that a little bit.
Oh,
What?
yeah. He was on the 2020 ballot and got two votes.
Wow. All right. Well, people don't feel the same about Cliff Lee like I did. All right. Let me
I
give you
would
go ahead.
Another one I would kind of consider, and I don't know if he also. Oh yeah, no. Um, Another guy I kind of feel like is in the same vein, like really good, but not for very that long. Tin Lincecum, who was on
Yeah.
the ballot
He's
in
not young.
2023,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah,
He's
so
not
he
getting
only
any
got
love
nine
though,
votes.
right? Yeah, no, he's
No,
not getting in. And yeah, I guess he falls a little bit more under the category with Cliff Lee. Uh, King Felix, it'll be interesting to see how many votes he gets this year. I think that'll be a good indication of whether he'll stay on the ballot for several years. Let me give you the classic era ballot because these are more from my era. And I guess it's only one of them, right? That gets voted in. But the Veterans Committee, they changed the name and call it now the Classic Era. So you've got Dick Allen, Dave Parker, Steve Garvey, Kim Boyer, Tommy John. He should just get in because of the surgery, itself. But Luis Tiant is on there this year, who just recently passed away. We talked about him and Vic Harris. And I think Vic Harris was a slugger with Cleveland, and I think is known for he's the guy who hit that ball that Willie Mays caught as the great catch in center field in the 1954 World Series. If I was to take someone out of there, maybe because he passed away this year, maybe Luis Tiant gets in. But Steve Garvey and Dave Parker and Dick Allen, I've always been surprised that they weren't in. But I think it's only one, right, that they could vote in from the classic era. And they've been, they got in. That's how Harold Baines got in and a few others. And all of these guys were a little bit better than Harold Baines. I'm sorry. Veda Penson is not on this list yet. Um,
Uh,
But I think Luis Tiant would be the one that I would think they may vote for this year.
there is no limit. It just says any
Oh,
candidate
okay.
who receives votes on 75% of the ballots cast by the
Yeah.
committee. And the
Okay.
committee is 8 people, so they need 6 out of the 8 people to
Yeah. Okay.
vote.
In which case, I throw Dave Parker into that mix. I hate to say these are two sympathy votes because Parker was a tremendous player, and Luis Tiant was a tremendous pitcher. But Parker is also very, very sick. He doesn't look nearly like himself. I think he has Parkinson's disease, I believe. He has something along
Okay.
those lines where they may want to get him in as well. All right, I'm gonna throw the names off at you that became eligible, but I'm positive they're not getting in, and you just tell me if you think I'm wrong. Curtis Granderson.
I really like Curtis
Yeah.
Granderson, but he's not a Hall of Famer.
No. Troy Tulowitzki.
Um, this would be a different discussion if the guy didn't get hurt every 2 years.
Yeah.
He's another one. Oh yeah, he played for the Yankees for like 10 games.
Yes, he did. That's right. Ben Zobrist, one of my favorite players.
Ben Zobrist, hero of the 2016 World Series. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's not good here, but
Yeah.
nah,
Yeah.
he's like though he's a guy that has a bigger impact than you think just because he like his versatility
Yeah.
became such a major tool and like
Oh, yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
teams love nowadays.
Such a good player for a long time. I remember when he finally made the All-Star team, people were like, wow, what position they voted him in at? Russell Martin,
Nah.
he's the only catcher in history for his first 3 years to have double digits in home runs and steals. Only catcher in history to ever do that. But no, he's not getting in. Here's an interesting one had he stayed healthy. Hanley Ramirez.
Oh, he would be very interesting if he stayed healthy.
Yeah. In '09, he batted 342. And then in one of his last good years with the Dodgers, he batted 350 something. I mean, that guy could hit, but also kind of an attitude problem a little bit. Seems like he was kind of a head case type of player. Adam Jones?
Also a fun player, but
Yeah. Yeah.
nah.
There's a guy that had some good years for you, Brian McCann.
Brian McCann, I think, might have enough votes to potentially get a second year.
Okay.
Um,
He
but
might stay on the
also,
ballot. Yeah.
but also he's not staying on the ballot for very long though.
Okay. I would say for 4, maybe even 5 years, this guy was one of the best players in baseball, but really faded fast. Carlos Gonzalez.
Yeah, he's another one. I can see him
Yeah.
potentially for like because people like that peak for him was
Yeah.
really good,
Yeah.
but nah.
Last one I have one of your all-time favorite relief pitchers, Fernando Rodney.
Oh gosh. He I actually did see a thing about Fernando Rodney.
Yeah.
Um he is one of 4 players since the expansion era to have I think it's like 20 saves or more and an ERA of below 1 and he did that in 2012. Obviously that's a stat that came up because of Class A this year, but
Yeah. He kept getting traded or just was signed a 1 year. He was on, yeah, with the arrow thing. But I gotta say, he I know he was better than Armando Benitez, but here's where he reminded me of Armando. Um, he would be lights out in the regular season, Fernando Rodney, but postseason he would get smacked. I mean, he's one of the best relievers that I saw get guys get hit would hit home runs off him in the postseason all the time. But he would always land in the postseason. Well, he was the Tigers, the Rays, he just bounced around to a lot of teams. But I mean, I would have taken him in the regular season anytime.
yeah,
Um,
you want to hear this 2012 year?
yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I'm not
great.
going to read the record because records are irrelevant for closers, but
Right.
um, he pitched in 76 games, which
You
is
got a rubber arm.
wild.
Yeah, yeah.
A .60 ERA,
Wow.
48 saves. Does it have blown saves somewhere on here? I don't see that quickly.
Yeah,
It's 72 innings. He gave up only 43 hits. He struck out 76, so a little bit over strikeout per inning pitched,
yeah,
and only walked 15 guys.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
He's very underrated, man. I mean, and I think for a couple of reasons. One, because his postseason was never that good, and two, because he bounced around to a lot of teams. Similar
oof,
like Craig Kimbrell, their careers have been kind of similar, I think,
yeah. Um, Postseason, he never lost a game,
right?
but he has a 5.71 career ERA in the postseason.
Yeah, he was terrible in the postseason. Yeah, he was really bad in the postseason. Yeah, yeah. All right, this is fun. We're gonna talk more about the Hall of Fame stuff as we go on. There's probably not much other baseball stuff to talk about just yet. Are you getting a gut feel for Juan Soto? I think nobody really is, but if you read everything, it's like it's leaning towards the Mets.
Yeah, I don't know, because even Hal's comments of
Yeah,
like I'm willing to go toe to toe with Steve Cohen.
yeah,
I don't know if that could just be like a appeasing the Yankee fan base, like we're trying.
yeah. Could
Um,
be. Could be.
but I don't know. All of the insiders are saying that the Mets are the favorite. Um,
Can I
I
ask
will
you?
say this
Yeah,
though.
yeah,
If the Mets don't land him, it's going to be a big L on them. Um, like they have the owner that's willing to spend. They have a good team around them that made the NLCS last year.
yeah,
Uh, if they cannot get him, then I think that's a lot of egg on their face.
yeah, yeah,
Now I don't know if he comes back to the Yankees, obviously I'm thrilled. But also, I don't know if I said this before. I'm pretty sure I texted it to you. The Yankees can still have a very great offseason that doesn't include Juan Soto.
hmm
Um, if say you sign Christian Walker, if you get one of these big arms, whether you're talking Blake Snell, Corbin Burns,
yeah,
whoever,
yeah,
um, and then you can kind of also shift some people around. Aaron Judge is a better right fielder than a center fielder.
right.
Um, Jazz Chisholm is a natural second baseman, and like kind of reset the lineup like that. I think they could be fine. Um, but also we'll see because
Yeah.
if Juan Soto's coming back, he's still a top 10 player in baseball. So,
Question I was going to ask you, do you think the Mets can sign both Soto and Pete Alonso?
no.
Okay.
Uh, I
Yeah.
think at this point the bidding war is just going to get crazy. You're
Yeah.
talking like 45 to 50 million a year. I
Yeah.
mean, Cohen could,
Yeah.
but he would be paying like well over $1 billion with the luxury tax penalties and all. And I
You
don't know if they're
got,
willing to do that.
you got to figure Pete is got probably going to get from somewhere 5 years, 150 or 170, something like that, don't you think?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like 5, 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. So for you, I would say if you lose Soto, Christian Walker very good. I would put more of my eggs in Pete because he's proven that he can play here in New York and he's younger than Christian Walker. I think Christian Walker's 34 years old. Now he's a very good player. Um, you could go real veteran and go for Goldschmidt. Um, but I got your second baseman replacement. I think if the Yankees lose out on Soto, go out and get Willie Adames, man. Why not? 32 homers, 112 RBIs. I mean, he's been consistent in both Tampa and Milwaukee. He's a winning ball player. Why wouldn't, I and he'll play second base. I'm sure he would. Because there was talk for the Mets, but I'm like, where would you put him on the Mets unless you lose Pete and you put him at third base, and Viento's at first, but then you're slowing down Acuna and you're slowing down if Ronnie Mauricio comes back. So, going to be really interesting. I don't think we'll have much baseball to talk about until Soto is signed, and then I think the floodgates will open. And maybe Soto will sign next week before Thanksgiving. We'll see because apparently he's got. I think he met with all the teams that he's going to meet with, right?
Yeah, unless there's the proverbial mystery team.
Well, yeah, that's
Um,
probably the Blue Jays though, and I don't see him going to Toronto. Or maybe it's the Giants. I don't see him going there either. You know, uh,
yeah. No, he's definitely like a big city guy, I think.
yeah, Yeah.
Something else that's interesting that I heard on another podcast. It's like a lot of the Japanese players like signing on the West Coast because it's closer.
Right.
A lot of Dominican players tend to sign more on the East Coast because it's closer
That's
there.
interesting. I didn't realize that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize it either. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
well, that to me thinks that Juan Soto is probably going to be in New York.
Yeah.
As to which pinstripes he'll have, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, Ken, last thing, we'll just talk some NBA briefly, and because I want to spend the time on the NFL. I, the only thing that's stunning me, and he should be looking at everything, but and I tell you, I would love him on the Mets, right? I will be happy if he comes on the Mets, but I gotta say that what a fit. And you and I called it when the Yankees got him. We said this is perfect. Watch, he's gonna love the bright lights. He's gonna love playing in that stadium where the fans are a little bit closer than they are at Citi Field. There. He's just gonna love everything about being a Yankee and playing, hitting in front of Aaron Judge all year. That was to his advantage. It just is like, and he had this monster season. It's just like a perfect thing for him to continue on the Yankees. But I mean, you got to do your due diligence, right? I would say, but I would still be shocked. I guess at this point, I won't be too shocked if he signs with the Mets. I would be shocked if he signs with someone else besides either the Mets or Yankees. But I would say I'll still be surprised that he doesn't go back to the Yankees. If the money is close, I think he chooses the Yankees. But if it was $50 million more, none of us would go to the Yankees. We would go to the Mets. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you're at 600 million though, what's another 50 million? I don't know. All right, let's just go briefly around the NBA because things are starting to develop a little bit. The Knicks with another big win. I thought it was a big win. Maybe I'm overstating it. It's only 15 games in, right? For the Knicks at 9-6 now. But they have turned a corner, and I don't know if you've seen how they've clicked offensively these last four games. They've won four in a row now. Two are against the Nets. The Nets are pesky. The other one was against the Wizards, who I told you I didn't know most of their players. Gisbert, I remember from Gonzaga. He's very good, actually. I didn't think he would be this good of an NBA player, but he was very good. Um, and Kyle Kuzma. But then last night they play a depleted but still good Phoenix team. They didn't have Durant, they didn't have Bradley Beal, but their offense is just clicking. And I think the Knicks are going to go on a nice roll here. This is a tough road trip. They do go to Utah now, but they also play Denver, and I'm forgetting the other two, Charlotte, I think. And it's like they come back across the country. Dallas, I think they also play on this road trip. So what are your thoughts on what you've seen from the Knicks in this last week or so?
I haven't watched a ton. I watched was it the game? Oh yeah, it was the game Friday night.
Yeah, I guess
Because there
that.
was no way I was watching that fight.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but
yeah. We're not talking about it either.
yeah, we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
That ending was insane. Between
Oh,
Jalen Brunson hitting the three and then
oh,
Mikal Bridges with the block at the end.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but I do feel like their offense is starting to click, which we had said from the beginning that it was probably going to take a few games for them to kind of get used to the system, get used to playing with each other. And I think that they've really taken that initiative and I'm seeing it now. Um, and I know points scored is a little inflated nowadays. This is not related. I saw a stat that the Warriors back when they won 73 games in 2015-16, they averaged about 31 3 points attempted per game, which led
wow,
the
yeah,
NBA.
yeah, yeah,
The Toronto Raptors are doing that, ranked 30th in the NBA this year.
yeah,
So like I know some of that is there, but the Knicks haven't scored 130 plus in like 60 years or something like that in back-to-back games.
right, yeah,
So I think the offense is clicking. I think everyone's starting to find their role because everyone's focusing on Karl Anthony Towns. Mikal Bridges is also new. OG Anunoby had some time last year, but this is his first full year with the team. So
yeah.
there's a lot of moving parts here. And I think that like not only is their starting five really good, I'm also really liking their bench too. Some of
Right.
these guys kind of
Yeah.
emerging a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Um, Now it's still too early to talk about playoff positioning, but I think they're in a good spot right now.
Yeah. So do I. I don't have really anything to add. I did not. I mean, you and I, that was back when we watched a lot of college basketball, and so we knew how good Carl Anthony Towns was in college, and don't see the Minnesota Timberwolves that often. So I didn't realize how good he was here, but he's fit in here in New York like anything. He loves it here, and he's all of a sudden off to his best start ever in his career. And him and Brunson seem to now be syncing very, very well with each other. And so I'm excited about this Knicks team. Bridges, the last couple of games, is now coming into his own. Um, this is, I mean, the Knicks have a chance to be formidable. They've got Ochua coming back. At some point, Mitchell Robinson will come back as well. So that'll be another element of defense off the bench that they'll have. But I'm excited about the Knicks team. Is there an equal amount of excitement there about the Cavs? I know they lost their first game. Of course, they were going to lose, and it stood the best team. I still think the best team in basketball until somebody knocked them off. They lost to the Celtics by 3 points. They made a big comeback in that second half yesterday. I watched a little bit of that game. Excitement there in Cleveland about the Cavs?
Yeah, I think there's starting to be a little bit more excitement now.
Yeah.
Especially as they were undefeated. I think there was a lot of like the chase there. Um, but also they're just I mean, Kenny Atkinson's got to be the early favorite for coach of the
Oh,
year.
yeah. He was just waiting for his chance again, you know? He should have never been fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like their offense also, like we talked about the Knicks clicking, the Cavs, the way that they move the ball. I
Yeah.
remember seeing, Draymond Green's podcast where he was talking about it. And like he said, like the way that they're moving the ball is just like so quick, like you can't even keep up with it.
Yeah.
And I think that that really helps. Also, I know Donovan Mitchell is the star, but the wealth is shared with everyone. And I
Yeah.
think like that really hardcore team mentality is really hard to beat sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, losing to the Celtics, although they came back and they made that a very competitive game, losing to the Celtics will hurt. But like you said, until someone like fully knocks them off, they'll be in first place. So
Yeah. 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 And we briefly in the opening touched on the Sixers on the other side. I mean, there's some teams that have been really disappointing. I saw the Bucks did win last night. They seem like they're riding the ship a little bit. But the Sixers seem like a train wreck. I don't, and then, what's going to hold the Sixers, I think, where they won't fall too far off is because I think they have not a good, I think they have a great coach and Nick Nurse. And I don't think he'll panic. I think that, he'll figure out the winning formula. But boy, they missed some of those role guys that they had last year, like Tobias Harris, Buddy Hield. Remember how Buddy Hield came off the bench and
oh
killed the Knicks
gosh.
last year? But I think they missed some of those guys, but they've got a great rookie player. And Maxey played last night, so he wasn't too, I guess he must have missed 4 or 5 games. They've got some turmoil there. Any thoughts on the Sixers?
The Sixers probably have to shake up something big.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I don't know what that is. I don't know if that
yeah,
is trading Embiid.
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I wouldn't trade Tyrese Maxey. I feel like he's
Oh,
got a little
no.
bit more upside.
Yeah, and
But
nobody's gonna
also,
trade
like,
Paul George. Yeah.
so let's say they announce tomorrow Embiid's on the trade market. Who's going to trade for him?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't
I
know.
don't think there's a team that's out there. Like, the Cavs aren't trading for him. The Celtics wouldn't trade for him. The
There,
Knicks, we said they're not trading for him.
there are 2 teams in Los Angeles, I think, that would roll the dice there. And,
Uh,
you
but the
know,
Lakers, they got AD.
I know, but maybe you use Embiid for 20 minutes a night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Davis could play power forward, you know. And the Clippers aren't off to a horrible start. They probably have some of the assets to get him, and they're in a new arena, you know.
Uh,
So I don't know. There would be somebody that would take a flyer on him, maybe Dallas even. I don't know. But see, here's what would happen. I was thinking about this last night, and we'll move on to the NFL. Uh, I see this past week, you saw a campaign. Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, and it made me think about that Phoenix team that, DeAndre, the center. It made me think about that Phoenix team that was building something special that lost in the finals, right? And you had Chris Paul
Yeah.
leading all that, and then they go and break the whole thing up for Kevin Durant. You know what I mean? So, um, what you probably don't want if you want to go out and get an Embiid is to break your whole team up. And Dallas has some very good young players that don't play as much, you know. The Lakers are building something this year. What are the Lakers now? 10-4, something like that. So they're building something.
Yep.
So you don't want to get into that type of situation. You see a guy like Embiid, and then he goes and he can't play because he's hurt or he's not going to play back to back. That's why maybe the Lakers, if they have enough draft picks and stuff like that, and maybe a couple of role players, could they convince the Sixers to trade him out there? And they won't need him because they're actually, I think the Lakers are. I think that JJ Redick is starting to prove a lot of us wrong. That he's probably a really good coach, but um, I think the Lakers have a good nucleus as well. Some of these guys, they stuck with a lot of the same guys that they had last year, and they're getting better. And they got Garrett Crochet, who's not Garrett Crochet, that's the baseball player. What is it? That Connect is his name.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm forgetting what college he was. I know we saw him in a tournament last year. Was he with the Illini? He was anyway. But to your question, somebody would maybe take a flyer on Joel Embiid, you know?
Uh I do have a proposal. I don't know if this
And
would Zion for Embiid. My problem for your problem.
that's a really good proposal, man. I don't know how that would work contract wise. NBA, you got to figure that out. That's probably very, very close. Probably the Pelicans would have to throw in one or two more players into that deal to make match up the salaries and everything. But um, that's yeah.
Uh,
What do you think?
yeah, I'll do the trade thingy now. Connect. He went to Tennessee.
Tennessee, right? Okay, right. And they went pretty deep in the tournament last year. Okay, gotcha. Um, anyway, all right. Let's jump into the NFL. I'm just going to briefly talk about Joe Douglas and the Jets, and then I want you to jump into your list because you made a few other really great changes. Although it's starting to get a little stability at the top, I'm noticing. Um, Joe Douglas, I thought was a very good GM. I mean, overall, I mean, he did draft Zach Wilson, bust, and Mekhi Becton, sorry. He also was a bust. But he has Sauce Gardner, he has Brees Hall. He drafted a lot of other guys that are very good players. I still don't know. I couldn't tell you what exactly is wrong with the Jets. And just being transparent, I haven't seen much of these last two games. And I know they're on a bye this week. I haven't seen much of these last two games, but I just know that what I saw in Arizona, I'm like, why is this team not moving the ball? It's really, really strange. Listen, Joe Douglas had almost 6 years. And so I think the firing is fair. I would have probably waited till the end of the year. I'm not sure what purpose is firing him now, except maybe you can start your GM search earlier. But I think that the Jets we might be in for a full rebuild. I mean, the big X factor is Aaron Rodgers, right? He has another year on his contract, so he's under contract for next year. But if he goes and says, "Hey, I still want to play, but I don't want to play here," they'll trade him, but who's going to take him? You know, or if he says, "Hey, I'll step aside, I'll retire," okay. But if he says, "Yeah, I want to play another year and I'm staying here," well, then you've got then you've got a problem, you know. Um, it the Jets, unfortunately, and the Giants for these next several weeks in the NFL, they're becoming irrelevant. Nobody's going to pay any attention to their games, and I think there's interest in the Giants this week because of Tommy DeVito, but outside of that, um, unfortunately, it's just another sad season for us New York teams. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on Joe Douglas.
It's um we we mentioned with the Lakers continuity, and I
Yeah,
feel like that kind of helps. Um, especially the NBA where a lot of teams change a lot of their players pretty consistently. Um, but we were talking earlier in the week about Joe Sheen and Brian Daboll probably coming back next
Yeah,
year because John Mara
yeah,
said,
yeah.
like, I'm sick of going through the coaching and GM cycle constantly.
I like that.
And
Yeah,
and I understand why this happened because like I mean, let's be honest, it's got to be Aaron Rodgers that was kind of pulling the trigger there.
yeah,
Um, but overall, Joe Douglas was a really good GM for the Jets. A
yeah,
lot of his
yeah,
draft picks really worked out.
yeah, yeah,
Just don't let him pick the quarterback.
yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I it's a shame. I think he'll get a job, another job, um, because I thought he was actually a very good GM. And you and I talked about this through text. He did trade for Aaron Rodgers, right? But we were all for it. Nobody second guessed that. There wasn't anybody I heard say, "Oh my gosh, no, we shouldn't get." The only thing we were like, he's going to bring some drama, and he has. You know, but we thought he could still play, and I think the injury impacted him more than we'll know at that age. With an Achilles tear at 39 years old. Um, it just goes to show there's nobody that's Tom Brady, man. He's to do it at his age, Aaron definitely can't do it. All right,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
well, two questions real quick.
Yeah.
Number one, who do you say is probably a likely option for the Jets quarterback? One that I saw that was an interesting one is Kirk Cousins. Like, do the Falcons make that switch and then he becomes available, whether it's the Jets or the Giants? Um, but also, what do you think of Woody Johnson's comments of that he wanted to bench Aaron Rodgers after week 4?
I think that was just frustration talking. You couldn't have done that. You couldn't have been there. So you're talking about after the game when they lost to Denver, right? I think somewhere there, or when
Yeah.
they lost. Yeah. I think that was probably frustration talking. I don't doubt that he said it, but there's no way that Salah would have done that at the time. I think that was just frustration talking. And as far as how they go, I'm hoping that this happens for the Jets because the Jets have never went in this direction. I'm hoping that they get an athletic young college quarterback with a big arm. So Mr. Deion Sanders' son seems to fit that bill, and start from there. Open up the offense, have someone that's a little bit of a threat to run as well as throw. Zach Wilson never really was that. See, Daniel Jones had that for a little while until he broke his neck. I mean, he was one of the best running quarterbacks around. But almost every team, you could, except Cincinnati was one of the exceptions, but Joe Burrow was so good at, passing. But you see what Josh Allen did on that final play, how he used his legs. Mahomes, how many players, and the game is so evolved like that because the defensive players are so fast and they come so far up in the pocket that you need that threat. But here in the Northeast, especially like this time of year, it's cold outside, it's rainy, it's windy. This could easily be a Sunday. You need that guy that also has a big arm that can throw through that, a la a Lamar Jackson, someone like that. There's only a few that I see in college that fit that bill this year, and one is definitely Shadir Sanders. I don't know if they could trade up to draft him. But you need someone like that, and I would just start all over. And if Rogers says he's coming back another year, okay, give him the other year. But bring in a strong coach that, hey, it's my team. You're my quarterback. This is my team, right? And that they're calling the shots. I don't know who that is. I've been thinking about a coach first. I mean, now obviously they have to get a GM first and let the GM hire the coach. Or did he clear that room so he can have conversations with Bill Belichick? Bill Belichick says he has no interest in being the GM anymore. Um, and this would be controversial because a lot of groups in New York, one of the reasons why Trevor Bauer never, got another chance, especially even though the Mets or Yankees could have used him this year. You place a phone call to John Gruden, but the way he went out, even though he personally didn't do anything, how he, was involved in these racist emails and sexist emails and stuff like that, um, he would be a hard sell. But John Gruden was a great coach, but you need that type of personality to bring in here. I don't know who that is, you know, but somebody that's going to run the show. So anyway, let's get to your list. I love it.
All right. Yeah, I tried to switch some stuff up here a little bit. Future looks weird. These six teams, it's not only just like the beyond this season, but also this season's going to be a little weird. The Cowboys are in the Thanksgiving game here between them and the Giants. Cooper, uh, Tommy Cutlets is going to be fun. Actually, no, but it's going to be weird because now, I don't know. I think I texted it to you. Michael Irvin has kind of straight up said that if he's offered the head coach job for Dallas, Coach Prime would say yes. Which like, I mean, it makes sense because they love to be sensational and all, but
Yeah.
they're in a weird spot.
Yeah.
Because like, if let's say it's Deion Sanders and Shadur Sanders as quarterback, like you can't really make that happen because you got Dak, and that contract is looking worse and worse by the day. The
Yeah.
Jets we talked about, their future looks weird. They've got to figure out what direction they want to go in. Do you want to go like, do you go after Russell Wilson? Do you go after a Kirk Cousins, or do you just start fresh? I agree with you. I think they need to start fresh.
Yeah.
The Jaguars. I'm assuming Doug Peterson's probably gone after this year. But you're also stuck with, once again, a very expensive quarterback. So I don't know what you do. Um, Carolina also is like in a weird spot.
Yeah.
Like, do you keep going with Bryce Young? Do you go back in the quarterback carousel and try to get somebody else? I don't know. The Raiders, I had seen a thing that apparently after every Raiders loss, Shadur Sanders tweeted, "Thank you, God." So I don't know if he's saying he wants to go to the
Let's go to
Raiders.
the Raiders.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tennessee, I can't tell what Tennessee is trying to do.
Yeah.
I still don't get why they fired Mike Vrabel. They have looked awful.
Yeah.
And I guess they are a team looking at like, I don't know, like are we trying to just completely tank and start over? I don't know. They're
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Um Next here, I'm really into the NBA Cup. These teams are like, they're, some of them are borderline teams. Some of them are could be really good. Some are bad, but like they're in or close to cities that have good teams in the NBA Cup. So they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to get some hope at least the next couple weeks. The Bucks schedule also looks really good over the next few weeks. They play the Giants this week. They play Raiders. They play a couple other teams. They can start to stack up wins. Mike Evans is supposed to be coming back soon, so they could be looking good. Also, not too far from Tampa Bay's Orlando. So they've got their eye on the Orlando Magic. Um, the Colts. The Colts are um they're in a weird spot.
Yeah.
They still could easily make the playoffs. They'll probably, if they make the playoffs, they'd probably be the 7th seed. But the Pacers are there. They might be looking at them. The Dolphins. The Dolphins are another team that can kind of sneak into that 7th spot. But also the Miami Heat are there. I don't know what the Heat are doing this year, but
That's a good.
it might be fun to watch the NBA Cup there. The Saints. The Saints also are kind of just a bizarre team, but maybe watching the Pelicans hoist up the NBA Cup might help. The Browns had a bye week, and but the Cavs are 15-1 or 16-1 now. So
Yeah.
I think that most of Cleveland's more focused on the NBA Cup. The Patriots, their season's done, but the Celtics are really good. So also the Giants. The Giants aren't going to be that intriguing other than, I don't know, Tommy DeVito helped win them out of getting Jaden Daniels. He might win them out of something else. I don't know. But the Knicks are good. The Knicks are undefeated in the NBA Cup. So
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So next tier, need to answer questions for 2025. Some or most of these teams will probably make the playoffs, but they have a lot of questions that they need to answer for next year in order to not just be like a wild card team that gets knocked off by a better team. The Rams, they need to answer the question, are they going to stay healthy? Um, that's a big question for them. The Niners, notice also the first three teams, they are all NFC West teams because
Division is amazing.
that division
Amazingly
is so
close.
tight.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, so the 49ers, I think their biggest question is like, have they hit their peak? And also like, are you gonna extend Brock Purdy? Or do you try to reset the clock on your quarterback?
Hmm.
Um, the Seahawks, I don't know what their question is, but they just are kind of a mid team, so I put them there.
Yeah,
Same with the Broncos. I think the Broncos have the pieces.
yeah,
Their biggest question is probably like, how can we get better?
yeah,
Um, the Bengals, Joe Burrow is like one of the most unlucky quarterbacks in recent memory. Like he's had a lot of great games that he's lost, and not necessarily because of his own fault. So, um, like if he was maybe 6-5, 7-4, we'd be talking MVP for him because he's had that good of a year.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the Falcons, their biggest question is who's their quarterback in 2025? Do you run it back with Kirk Cousins? Do you try to trade him and go with Michael Penix Jr.? I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
Um, and the Bears, their biggest question is who's going to be our head coach next year.
yeah,
Mike Vrabel might actually be a great fit there.
yeah,
Uh, I saw a stat with the Bears that they had a 73% chance of winning a game on Sunday and they lost.
yeah,
They've lost five other games where they had a 90% or better chance of winning at some point,
yeah. They're
and they
close. They
lost all
just,
five of them.
yeah, they can't close the deal. They're close. I think the
And
Bears. Yeah,
you know what's crazier than that though? The odds of losing all six of those games is 1 in 68 million.
what?
They've done it.
Gosh.
So yeah. Next, we are for real. These teams
Yeah,
have proven that they're for real, that they're like legitimate playoff contenders. You got the Steelers there.
yeah.
Russell Wilson, comeback player of the year. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah,
That might
he
be a
hasn't
good
lost
pick
yet,
there.
right? As a starter.
Not yet. Um, the biggest issue though, the Ravens. The Ravens lost to them. The
Yeah,
Ravens have had a lot of questionable losses. Like I think they've moved from the top tier to like we're a playoff contender tier.
yeah,
That's kind of why I have them there. Um, the the Commanders, they'll make the playoffs. I think Jaden Daniels, since he got injured, hasn't looked great. So that's kind of there. The Chargers, I think will probably be very close to moving up because they've been that good.
yeah.
Um, Also great head coach there.
Mhm.
And then you got the Cardinals there. I mean, they're the only ones winning they're winning that very close division, so that's why they're there. And the Packers have been like very quietly very good.
Yeah,
Um, so there's that, and then the cream of the crop. These are the top teams, top six teams to me in the NFL right now. I have the Bills number one because they deserve that by beating the Chiefs.
yes, yeah,
Josh Allen now is starting to get some more momentum about MVP. Um, and their division is sealed up. But right now, you're kind of looking, can you get the number one seed, get that bye, force Patrick Mahomes to play an extra game? That could be huge.
maybe. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the Lions are like the team that they won't
Huh.
just beat you, they'll destroy you. Um, it's incredible.
It is incredible. What they're doing is amazing.
And Jared Goff is not getting a lot of MVP love, but probably should.
Yeah,
Um, One note on the Lions, they trailed the Cowboys for 2 minutes and 15 seconds this year. That's the only time the Cowboys held a lead at all at home this year.
oh,
And the Cowboys also have trailed for over 109 minutes by 20 points or more.
uh,
Um,
they've
so
been awful.
yeah, the Chiefs now with the loss out of the way, the question is how can you make the three-peat happen? Patrick Mahomes hasn't looked great this year, but he's done enough to win. Um, and they play the type of game that you hate playing. They play the Panthers. And you know, if they lose, it's going to be
Yeah,
heads will roll in Kansas City. Like, no one's going to get fired, but
yeah.
like, it'll be
Trap
a bad
game.
week.
Yeah, it's a trap
Um,
game.
Absolute trap game. The Vikings are just kind of there. There's Sam Darnold, also maybe comeback player of the year. At that 8-2 record there.
Yeah.
The Texans, I went back and forth with them as to whether or not they're the cream of the crop or they're just for real. But I think that they're there. I think that they're probably the third best team right now in the AFC. Also, I believe in CJ Stroud, and with Nico Collins back, I think they got something there. And then the Eagles, like they've made such a difference that Saquon Barkley's 360 hurdle has been added to Madden now. So
Really?
yeah, good for them.
Well, as always, a great job on this. I'll post it on our Facebook page, and we'd love to hear your comments on this. I don't have anything to add, man. This is dead on. You know, it's just the Lions continue to amaze me on what they're doing week in and week out. All right, real quick, what are you gonna watch tonight? Steelers Browns.
I'm not watching that.
Tampa at your New York Giants to see DeVito. Yes, no.
I'm not really that into Tommy DeVito.
Okay, all right. How
I
about
want them to
you?
lose.
Yeah. All right. You heard it here. Uh, I think an interesting 1 o'clock matchup, Detroit at Indy.
Yeah, that's one of those very intriguing like the interconference games that can be very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Also, it's a big game, I think, more for Tampa Bay than it would be for Indianapolis.
Yeah. Okay. 4 o'clock, 49ers at Green Bay.
That's like a very if Aaron Rodgers was playing that game and it wasn't like this year, we'd be very excited for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even now, like
Yeah.
the Packers are really good.
They are. They are. And the 49ers are getting desperate for sure. Arizona at Seattle.
That could be a huge division playoff implications types of games.
Yeah. Yeah. The Eagles at the Rams Sunday night.
Eagles and Rams, it's one of those that's I might watch that because
Okay.
it could be very big for the Rams.
Okay.
Not so much for the Eagles, but
Okay. I think the game of the week is Monday night. This is just my opinion. Baltimore at the Chargers.
I totally agree. None of
Yeah.
the 425 games are really like, whoa, but that
Yeah.
one is like,
That
whoa.
was great. That one I'm going to try to set some time aside to watch. And the thing is, the Monday night game, they start exactly 8:15, so they're not on that late, anymore like they used to be in the past when they would start at 9 o'clock. Um, all right, great stuff. We're in the home stretch of the NFL season. You ready to get to some inspiration?
Yeah, let's do it.
Mine is not sports related. I don't know if this is the first time. It might be. I watched a movie, Kenny, that I want to recommend to you and maybe show to some of your youth that you have in the church as well. It is a movie that I watched twice in the last few days because I watched it before. I showed it for one of the churches here. It's a movie called The Forge, and it is on Amazon Prime, only $4, $4.99, $5 on Amazon Prime right now. It is all about what we all should be doing, whether we follow the Lord or not, and that is discipleship and discipling and helping others. And it is really centered around that. There's a lot of other things that happen in the movie, but it is an outstanding movie. I would give it 5 stars out of 5 stars. And so it inspired the heck out of me, inspired the folks that saw it at church. They couldn't stop talking about it. And so mine is a little bit different. I did come across an article that I'll go through next week for inspiration, but my inspiration this week is the movie The Forge. Go out and watch it. Or don't go out. Watch it at home.
There you go. I like that. Um, well, I wanted to shout out our comeback players of the year for baseball.
Yeah,
It's funny you mentioned him for the White Sox, Garrett Crochet.
yeah,
So his final stat line for this year, he was 6-12. I mean, he's on the worst team in baseball history, but he had a 3.58 ERA, 32 innings pitched, 146 innings, 209 strikeouts. Very good. He could be a big blue chip trade chip this offseason.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. He's
Came off
really
of a
good.
year
Yeah.
where he played in 13 games as a reliever year before he was injured, and it's kind of completely turned the page on that, and good for him.
Yeah.
But obviously the big one and the guy that definitely deserves it in the National League is the Cy Young Award winner, Chris Sale. I
Yeah.
told you before, Chris Sale won the Cy Young Award. He has never won the Cy Young before,
I could have sworn
which
he
is,
had. I was shocked.
yeah,
Yeah.
he has a second place, a third place finish, a few fourth. But the last 4 years, a lot of injuries. One that sticks out to me real quick was in his first game back, he's facing off against the Yankees. And in like the third inning, takes a comebacker right off the elbow, fractures his elbow. And I think he was working his way back from a rehab and then re-injured himself somehow, some way, and his
Yeah.
season was over.
I remember that.
Um,
Yeah.
so over the last since we'll go, yeah, over the last 4 seasons, so since 2020, he played a total of 31 games. He's 11-7, 3.93 ERA. It's not bad, but it's not great.
Right.
This year, led the majors with 18 wins, led the majors with a 2.38 ERA, led the National League with a 220 with 225 strikeouts, and also a FIP of 209, which also led the majors.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also had a 174 ERA plus, which led the majors.
Amazing.
Won the pitching triple crown, wins the Cy Young. I don't think it was unanimous, but
Should have been.
good for him.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he's not a Red Sox anymore. So
Yeah. He had a great year. I think I saw that the pitching triple crown. It was the first time. Was it 2012 maybe or 2013? Verlander and Kershaw. Uh,
yep,
both had. So I didn't realize it had been that long. That's hard to do, to lead in all those categories. But both Scooble did the same thing, right? In the American League, the triple
yep.
crown. So Chris Sale was unbelievable this year. Great, great trade for the Braves. All right. Lots to talk about next week. And we're going to talk to you before Thanksgiving. So we won't wish you a happy Thanksgiving just yet. So we'll talk to you before Thanksgiving. Lots of great things happening next week. Kenny, take us home.
All righty. This is Kenny Squared N
Kenny.
with Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next time.
Yes.